and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Doriso, could we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Hofkin.
Here.
Mr. Prego.
Here.
Mr. Hipser.
Here.
Mr. Elliott.
Present.
Mrs. McGinnis.
Here.
Ms. Pennypacker.
Here.
Mrs. Cunningham.
Here.
Mrs. McCormick.
Here.
Mr. McCarrick.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the introduction of our staff here today, we have Mr. Doriso. We do have Georgianne Fisher. We have our solicitor, Mr. Summers. Dr. Roche is not here today. Dr. Farina is filling in for the meeting. And we also have our student representative, Enoch Padilla, here today as well. So the next item on the agenda is the board's president's report. My apologies to our student representative if I step a little on your report, because I am going to be talking about some student stuff. But I wanted to highlight a couple of the events I attended in the past 2 weeks that made me so proud to be the president of the Upper Perk School Board. First, on Monday, February 28th, I had the pleasure of attending the Unified Bocce Playoffs at the Upper Perk High School. Sitting in the stands watching our teams compete, I couldn't help but reflect on how the teamwork, cheers of encouragement, and friendships I witnessed perfectly illustrated the phrase, raising up all students. For those of you who may not be fully aware of this program, the Unified Sports Program provides opportunities for students both with disabilities and without disabilities to participate in sports meaningfully, and by engaging students in the school community helps promote inclusion, acceptance, and respect. The Unified Bocce season begins in December and runs through the end of February, with regional championship events held in March. Team practices a minimum of twice a week and typically participate in at least 3 competitions. Our Upper Perk Indians competed against students from North Penn, Upper Marion, Souderton during the playoff tournament. Upper Perk fielded 2 teams of student athletes, and both our A team and B team performed wonderfully. And the B team advanced all the way to the finals before falling to North Penn in a really close contest. Last week, I was lucky enough to catch the amazing performance of Shrek the Musical Junior. I don't know how many of you got to see it, but oh, it was wonderful, by our middle school drama students. The amount of work required to put on a musical theater production is incredible. The entire cast, stage, and lighting crew, which was all made up of students, put in hours and hours of rehearsal time. And on top of the long days dedicated to learning lines, songs, dance routines, and blocking, it takes tremendous courage to get up on stage and perform in front of friends, family, and strangers. It was such a joy to see the talent of our students both on stage and behind the scenes, and I have no doubt that I will see many of them in future productions. And this weekend, our high school will be presenting a series of 3 one-act plays. I hope everyone takes the opportunity to attend those. I know I will. It's great to have the arts back at Upper Perk. I would also like to say thank you to all the adults who made these events possible for our students, including the dedicated school staff, the community volunteers, and all the parents who adjust their schedules so their child can attend practices, help with uniforms and costumes, assist with fundraising, and encourage the students. None of this is possible without you. Congratulations to all the students, and thank you for making us Upper Perk proud. Next, I'm going to move on to the superintendent's report. I know you're all really disappointed that Dr. Roach did not submit another 23-minute long video this time. So instead, we're going to move to the solicitor's report, Sunshine Act announcements.
Student report.
Oh, did I miss? I thought, sorry. I thought I had those backwards. We'll do student representative to the board report first.
All right. Brandon Ronowski qualified for a state wrestling tournament, which starts tonight. Spring sports started this week. We have tennis, baseball, softball, and track starting contest soon. Friday, March 18th is a 3-hour early dismissal. The end of the third marking period is March 30th, and the sophomore business tours will be on April 6th and the 7th. That ends my report.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the solicitor's report.
And I have no report this evening. Thank you.
Great. Next, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. You're going to make that 15 minutes, aren't you? Any questions or comments about the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes for the approval of the agenda. We'll next move on to public comments on action items. Any public comments? Up. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vicki Lightcap, Pennsburg. What I was wondering, I saw on here that there's a proposed revised health and safety plan that you're going to be discussing and then voting on. I wanted to see if whether or not contact tracing is going to be taken back to where it was before the pandemic, where we were just concerned about measles, lice, and those kind of things. So I'm hoping that that's the case. I guess we'll wait and see, but that's what I'm hoping for, that contact tracing goes back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the audience have a comment on action items?
Kelly Holt, Pennsburg. My concerns are about the health and safety plan. With everything constantly changing, it is hard to find out what's going on in terms of how the school is operating regarding the health and safety plan. I know we're all confused by the ever-changing rules, and I have a few questions. In the presentation under section E, it specifies that contact tracing type for the areas of the bus and classroom would include a general notification letter to exposure settings, and additional notification would be provided to individuals who have medical exemptions. I was curious where a copy could be found of what these notifications entail and how might this impact a student who falls into this category. It was also shared that mask wearing was no longer required. However, it appears that we will be adding the bus and classroom back to the list of areas for contact tracing if there is a potential outbreak. With the guidance on outbreaks, which is defined as 2 or more kids in the same setting who are positive, it appears the school is able to require a whole group to mask. I was curious if these children were required to test to stay during this time. And I noticed there was a clinical trial titled Test to Stay COVID-19 Testing Following Exposure in School Communities. While I'm not positive if we're participating in this, what I do know is that this trial is strikingly similar to what the school has been implementing for the last year or so. The trial doesn't even end until September 26th of 2023. There are 1 million participants included, and some of the outcome measures included students and staff who have tested positive and missed days. I was curious if the school has a plan to compensate educational time lost due to quarantine, and if the school was participating in the clinical trial titled Test to Stay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more comments from the public at this time? Okay. Moving on, we will move to the approval of the minutes for the February 10th, 2020 board meeting. We have a motion and a second. Any comments, concerns, questions? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We're going to move on to presentation discussion. The first one is board policy revisions, repeals, and adoption, first reading. For that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Summers.
Thank you, Madam President. With regard to the first reading of policy 903, as with the district's typical practice, this policy was reviewed by the policy committee. The district has a policy 903 currently in place. What prompted this particular policy coming before the committee at this time is I did make a suggestion several months ago that the committee should take up this particular policy in light of some litigation in other school districts involving policy 903. Specifically, there was a lawsuit that received a fair amount of media attention in the Pennsbury School District, where members of the public during the public comment opportunity at their meeting were asked to stop speaking or were interrupted during the meeting for a variety of reasons that they were alleged to be in violation of that district's version of policy 903 for comments that were classified as abusive or irrelevant. And there were at least 4 individuals that brought a lawsuit against the school district alleging that having been interrupted during their public comments, that violated their First Amendment rights. And a federal judge in Philadelphia issued an injunction against the school district, finding that their implementation of the policy did in fact violate the First Amendment. And so they were prohibited from enforcing certain aspects of that policy. And so my suggestion to the district was to review our version of 903 to ensure that we did not have the same provisions that were found to be problematic in the Pennsbury case. So although we are reviewing all of our policies, I did suggest that we move up policy 903 in terms of the time at which we would address it to sooner rather than later. And so it is the version that was presented to the policy committee was the PSBA, the Pennsylvania School Boards Association model policy 903. However, I did make a suggestion, and that was accepted by the committee, to remove all of the aspects that were found to be problematic in the Pennsbury case. So, for example, there was a section of policy 903 that talks about the ability of the chair of the meeting to interrupt the speaker during public comment for a variety of reasons. And the model policy included when the comments are abusive, when they are irrelevant, when they involve personal attacks. I suggested removing all of those things. So while we certainly would not hope that people who come to the podium during public comment would make comments that are abusive, personal attacks, or irrelevant, it does not prohibit people from doing that. And so the policy, as suggested, certainly allows individuals to come to the podium and only allows anyone to be interrupted if their comments exceed the time limit, are obscene. And obscene is not just the use of profanity, it is appealing to the sexual interest. So it would be a very limited amount of speech. Or if someone is speaking about something that is completely unrelated to the school district, unrelated to anything before the board or even something that might come before the board. Those would be the only circumstances in which somebody could be asked to have their comments interrupted. Another important thing that the committee talked about is the amount of time that we allot for our speakers. For a number of years, it has been, as most of you who attend meetings are now well aware of from my signs that I hold up, 2 minutes. So the committee discussed it, looked at what other school districts provide, and decided to recommend increasing the amount of time that's available per person from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. Also, the committee looked at the practice in terms of having a sign-in sheet. And actually the current policy that had been in place talked about having a sign-up sheet for public comment. It's just, it hadn't been something that had been done for a while. And so that was discussed, and there was an interest in having a sign-up sheet for individuals to sign up before the meeting if they want to speak on any agenda item, or if during the meeting something comes to mind, the ability to sign up to speak at the end of the meeting. One beneficial aspect of that is it will allow anyone to indicate their municipality that they live in on the sign-up sheet and not have to state it out loud during the meeting, because they can just put that information on the form that would then be brought up. So this is a first reading. There's no action required by the board tonight. Certainly, if there are any questions, we can answer them or discuss them. It just is present on the agenda so that at the next meeting of the board, it would appear for a vote at that time. So that, I think, covers most of the changes. Happy to answer any questions, and certainly members of the policy committee had further discussion on this at their meeting. So.
Do any board members have any questions for Mr. Summers? Okay.
Thank you.
Then we are going to move on to the proposed revised health and safety plan, and that will be Dr. Farina.
So I'm actually going to stand. I feel like it's been like 2 years or so, actually almost to the day that I stood. But yes, naturally, after our last meeting, we received new guidance on February 28th that the Montgomery County Office of Public Health guidance would once again change, which then initiated an additional change to, and I think this Ms. Holt will answer some of your questions, require a change to the health and safety plan. So the most important factor here was that the Montgomery County Office of Public Health, much of our data has come out of metrics from them, positivity and incidence rate. So what Montgomery County Office of Public Health did is adopt CDC's community level as the data indicator for decision-making and school guidance. They provided that rationale, which I will share with you today, and then what impacts it has to our health and safety plan. That came to us on March 1st. So ultimately, the community level and indicators looks like this. So I can't step away from this mic, or I would. But as you can see, cases, the number of cases in the county are still a factor. But as you can see, remember, we've been talking about the number 50 for probably a year or more. As you can see, now it's 200. That is significantly different than 50. But the other indicators that they've included when determining low, medium, and high are the new admissions per 100,000 and the percent of currently staffed inpatients who are in beds due to COVID. And so as you can see, if there are fewer than 200, these factors become relevant. When you get more than 200 cases, then we start looking, and this data is out. If you go to Montgomery County Office of Public Health, it takes you right to the CDC's community levels and indicators. And so that's a significant shift. It's a significant shift in number of cases and a significant shift in the other factors that they're considering when making recommendations for school guidance. So why is that? So ultimately, the adoption of CDC's indicators is that we're in a very different place than we were from 2 years ago. There are vaccinations as well as therapeutics, treatments for people who acquire COVID. We were not in that place 2 years ago, and we are now. There's a shift in approach from prevention toward medically, to prevent medically significant disease or hospitalization. And so, I think back to Ms. Lightcap's comment, pre-pandemic, those were sort of the factors that the Office of Public Health looked at. And one of the things that they shared with us is that the data really didn't indicate the mildness or severity of any case. We were just counting the cases and how many positives there were. And so, as many of you have mentioned over time, there's a difference in acuity and there's a difference in how people experience COVID. And that was acknowledged. And none of the factors that we used previously thought about hospitalization. Although we all know that was a factor they talked about publicly, but it was never in the school guidance. So, of course, that changes things for our health and safety plan and the recommendations of the district. Here's what I can say. So when it comes to all these parts of the health and safety plan, nothing's changed. Masks are still optional with the exception of if you are positive for COVID or you live in the household with somebody who's COVID, masking is still days 6 and 10, but you can return to school. None of that has changed from what was presented to you on February 24th. What has changed, to Mrs. Lightcaps, is we are no longer contact tracing single cases of COVID. So if I have COVID, I have COVID. I notify the school. And then, the conversation about buses and cafeterias and classroom, we're still monitoring it, but from the optics of the outbreak. So what is an outbreak? An outbreak is 3 positive cases of COVID over 14 days within one setting where they have to be linked. So as a nurse, as the pandemic liaison, I work with the Montgomery County Office of Public Health. This is much like what we've done for pertussis, chickenpox in the past. That is in our communicable disease policy. It's in public health code that when there's an outbreak, then we have to manage it. And often that does still require quarantine. And that's for the duration of the longest incubation period of the virus. And so we have done that the 22 years I've been in the profession. I'm not sure if it was before that, but probably. So you will see we will operate under that school board policy. The difference is with this virus and what the outbreak means is that we can mask to stay, which means if you are exposed in an outbreak situation, we would require masking, not quarantine at home, unless you did not want to mask. But remember, I have to be able, as the pandemic coordinator, to report to OPH that these are inextricably linked. We all got it. They got it from me. There's no other way they could have gotten it, which is what we do right now. So, or pre-pandemic. So to answer that question, we are no longer or will no longer, with the adoption of this health and safety plan, be contact tracing single cases of COVID. And I'm happy to report, and we have very few cases of COVID, but so things like looking in the classroom, the bus, and the cafeteria would not become relevant unless we see a pattern of 3 or more cases of kids who share a common group, classroom, event, sport, something like that. That's what it looks like for somebody now. You remember the previous graphs, they were all over the place. As you can see, really what we're talking about, and this would be the case for any other communicable disease. If you're positive or you live in the home with somebody who is a positive case of COVID and you can't isolate from that person, that's what happens. You remember that contact tracing, that block is gone, and this is what we would refer to. We still report in aggregate. That means I report to the county weekly the number of cases and if we have an outbreak. To date, I have not reported an outbreak. So if that's any indication of the implementation of this, no, I'm feeling good about it. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but it should feel like, I won't say. Any questions?
Oh, just thank God. Like, it's great to see. So thank you.
Listen, as your appointed pandemic coordinator for 2 years, I got you, Mr. Elliott. None? Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Farina. All right, next on the agenda is old business. And according to the agenda, we don't have any old business at this time. So we're going to move on to new business. We will start with the personnel report.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
Second. I have a question about old business. Did we
Oh,
ever get-
absolutely.
Did we get an update about the nurse who offered to circumvent the parents' wishes?
So we absolutely took into consideration those comments, but we will not speak about personnel in a public meeting.
Are we going to get an update outside of public meeting?
There was an email.
I'll re-forward it.
And Jim, can you check to make sure the emails are working?
So did you have any other questions about old business? I'm sorry, I didn't want to. Okay. Then we will continue with we have a motion and a second to approve the personnel report in its entirety. Does anyone have any questions on the personnel report?
Congratulations on the retirements for the people that are retiring. Welcome to the new people that are joining us, and goodbye to the people that are leaving us, unfortunately.
You're here.
All right, so if no one has any other questions or comments, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We're going to move on to Action items. First action item, motion to approve the 2022-2023 school calendar.
Second.
And there is a note on the agenda that graduation for the class of 2022 will be Friday, June 10th. It's better than the Thursday. Last year was Thursday, wasn't it? Yeah. So I would have thought Friday would have been, yay, it's Friday. No? Oh, okay. All right. Does any of the board members have any questions about the 2022-2023 calendar? No? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
I'll make a motion to approve the health and safety plan.
Okay, great. We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the revised UPSD Health and Safety Plan, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion C, to approve the Montgomery County IU's budget for July 1st, 2022 to June 30th.
I'll make a motion to approve C, the budget, B, the extracurricular projects, E, we approve the board policies for repeal and replace. F, the high school event trip, and G, the motion for the bid for the.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on any of those action items? No? I'd just like to say, I am so happy to see us approving an overnight trip. Talk about feeling like back to normal. So that is wonderful. It's so great to see. And congratulations to the students who get to attend the State Leadership Conference also.
Can we get a report on how that goes? Not the overnight part, the actual.
Maybe we want that
I
too.
don't, I would know
Yeah.
parts of that.
Yeah.
Yes, just the performance.
That
from-
would be a personnel matter.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have any questions or comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to turn over the mic now to Mr. Hipser to go over the financial reports.
All right, let's see if we can get through this. The business report for March 10th includes the following. Under the general fund expenditures appearing on pages 20 to 25. We have disbursements totaling $1,212,012.59. Large regular monthly payments include our contractual commitments to Christ Transportation and the Western Center. Interestingly, not included in this month's disbursements are the most of the charter school bills, which according to my mole within the office will appear in next month's report. There were no disbursements from the capital projects or capital reserve accounts. Are there any questions for Mr. DeRiso regarding the disbursements?
Yes, a couple. So check number 14048 to Spear Excavating for 2,200. What are we working on that I don't know about?
One second.
I'm sure Doug knows off the top of his head.
Sorry.
This was a bulk salt purchase. I think it's for rock salt.
Gotcha. Number 14080, which is to Norman's Bus Service for 10,255. I'm assuming that's extracurriculars and sports and our
Yes,
extras.
yes,
that we
we've
can't
been
cover.
working with Norms to cover some of the extracurriculars.
Okay, I'm not done yet.
I think there were a couple of ones.
Number 14131 to Jaytheon Technologies for 19,200. Just a name I haven't seen before.
So Jaytheon, right, is the archive. So for our email archive project that we're working on through the IT department.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
No other questions at all? Seeing as such, I would entertain a motion to approve these expenditures.
Second.
Any comments, questions? With that in mind, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That concludes the financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Hipser. Do we have any items that we need to add to the new follow-up items besides making sure that we email Ms. Hofkin that?
And making sure you know.
Yes. Okay. I'll add that. All right, so then we're going to move on to the shortest meeting so far. Public comments. Now here does not need to be on an agenda item. This is on anything that you need to bring before the board.
My name is John McFadden, municipality again, written down. So I'd like to start off with something I think is very true. Why'd the chicken cross a road? To get out of Upper Perkiomen School District. Get it? Because it's a joke. We've heard time and time again, CDC guidelines, CDC guidelines this, CDC guidelines that. This is why my kid needs to get left on the side of the road. This is why other kids need to be abandoned and not picked up. But apparently when it comes to the CDC guidelines of recommended seat time of 20 minutes to eat, no. I was told today by the principal of the middle school that my kid is the only one who is having this issue. So I took it to the community and I had plenty of responses of parents. One parent, not going to mention names, my son is a seventh grader, eats lunch last, does not have enough time to finish lunch. A previous worker, I worked at the middle school, and if you are not the first group of kids, you don't have enough time to eat, and it's all drama at lunch. I no longer work there, but I do suggest packing a lunch so you always have enough time to eat. Our tax dollars are funding this. It's bullshit. I was also told that they are not told to throw out their food, but according to my daughter, not only her, but 3 other people at her table today were told to throw away their food when they were at like 12:55, when she sat down at 12:50. It's not acceptable. And any of the parents out there who are listening to this, you need to talk to your kids and you need to quit listening to the bullshit that the fucking principal is spewing about nobody else saying anything. You need to talk to your kids and find out what's going on. These school systems are not treating your kids properly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other members of the audience want to come up and speak?
Mary Cannon, Orhowski, Hereford. I'm not going to be as colorful as he was, but I will concur that my children do tell me the same thing. I don't want to be alone in this, but I hear it. Been hearing it for years. I just kind of ignore them. They're told to throw their stuff out. They only get a few minutes because it all is based off of the kids who get to eat and have more time is if they're in line first, especially now, I believe with the everybody sits down and you go up table by table. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's the way it is. I don't know if it's changed. But if you're getting your lunch last and you've been waiting in line for 20 minutes, they're not getting a lot of time to eat.
Thank you.
Kelly Holt, Pennsburg. I would like to bring the attention to the board that there are currently no FDA-approved rapid antigen tests. You might be surprised to know that the FlowFlex test cannot differentiate between SARS-CoV and SARS-CoV-2. A negative test does not mean the person is not infected with SARS-CoV-2. The FlowFlex test is authorized despite the fact it does not meet certain requirements otherwise applicable by federal law. Why are we using a test that is unable to pinpoint COVID-19 accurately for students to be able to participate in their education? It's concerning to me that the vaccinated status exempts a child from being identified as a close contact. In the clinical trial labeled a phase 1-2-3 study to evaluate the safety, tolerability, and immunogenicity of an RNA candidate against COVID-19 in healthy children and young adults, you will find the trial does not end until May 5th, 2026. So in about 4 years, we will know for sure what is in the Pfizer, what it is the Pfizer vaccine actually does. Until then, why are we using a non-approved vaccine that is still being studied on to exclude students who are not vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine. Masking, just like the rapid antigen test and the vaccines, is only authorized for emergency use without the studies to back up the claim of effectiveness. In a randomized control study published in PubMed in 2015, titled "A Cluster Randomized Trial of Cloth Masks Compared with Medical Masks in Healthcare Workers," it was concluded that this study is the first RCT of cloth masks, and the results caution against the use of cloth masks. This is an important finding to inform occupational health and safety. Moisture retention, reuse of cloth masks, and poor filtration may result in increased risk of infection. Also, a more recent article published in 2021 titled "Efficacy of Surgical Masks or Cloth Masks in the Prevention of Viral Transmissions" concluded that there is limited available preclinical and clinical evidence for face mask benefit in SARS-CoV-2. Why are we masking the kids? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Would anyone else like to come up? Okay, then we're going to move on to board comments. Do any board members have any comments? Yes, Ms. Hofkin, go ahead.
As Kelly Holt had asked, are we participating in a test to stay trial? Or is that the ACID trial? What are we participating?
Yeah, since January of 2021, we have participated with CHOP, the Montgomery County Office of Public Health, to have BinX Now tests were the first tests that we provide voluntarily for screening and testing for symptomatic students. We still do all voluntary symptomatic student testing. We do test to stay only for staff who have a household positive case. And we offer them to families should they want them. They're not mandatory. So the FlowFlex is the new test that is provided by CHOP.
So all the information goes to CHOP or?
So we do not use the actual, so there was a Strack app, we used to scan. Those are using FlowFlex. We don't use that. I just report in aggregate the number of cases and the number of tests administered. And at-home testing now is the most prevalent form. So parents report to us what they test at home.
Just to clarify the last comment, there's no demographic information submitted to anybody at this point.
There is not.
And you said all the tests are voluntary too, right?
It is all voluntary.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share something fun. So last Tuesday, I got to go to Mrs. Coffey's classroom, second grade at Hereford, and I got to read Dr. Seuss' The Cat in the Hat, and it was a lot of fun, and those kids are adorable. And had lots of questions. That's it. Thank you.
Are we down to Mr. Prego? Okay. Mr. Prego informed me that he has quite a few shout outs for us. So I've been looking forward to this all day since I got his text.
Yes, I warned you ahead of time. It's quite a few, so which is awesome. Like, this is terrific stuff. The first one came from Jason and Kelly Zinfer. They wanted to shout out to the 7th grade math teacher, Ms. Keebler, for taking time to write an unnecessary but friendly and positive email to them. She goes above and beyond to focus on the good happening in her classroom. Thank you, Ms. Keebler. The next one is from Amy Shupp, and she had 2 of them. The first was her son Christopher and his classmate Stella were chosen for the PMEA District 11 choir. The performance was last night, this is when I received the email, but at Souderton High School. Stella has also been chosen for the regional choir in March and is eligible to audition for the all-state choir later this month. The second shout out she had was actually to us. She wanted to give the board members and administration a shout out. Everyone in the community is frustrated with the current situation with the COVID-19 pandemic. You've all done your best to keep our children healthy and safe. I thank you all for your efforts. I know it is not an easy and often a thankless job. The next one comes from Kristen Otto, and I debated reading this one, and you'll find out why in a second. She wanted to send kudos to Coach Mike Elliott and other volunteers for making the first grade basketball team an exciting and fun time for the kids. It was important for the kids to have a structured and positive experience with their peers during this crazy world that we live in. I know my family is so thankful for this opportunity and grateful for the people who made this happen to our kids. So
A lot of great volunteers go into making that program work. So it's a lot of great people. So just kudos to everybody who's involved and helps out every Saturday morning for that. So thanks.
So the next one comes from Micah Keller and his parents, Sarah and Justin. They wanted to send a shout out to Tara Weller, one of the high school maintenance janitors. They write that their son brings his basketball wheelchair to school for gym. When school was closed Friday, we panicked because he needed his chair for practice today, and they're the opening act for the Globetrotters tomorrow. Anyway, we contacted the school and they gave Tara my phone number. She called right away and let us in to pick up his chair. It saved us from a huge disappointment, and we were so grateful. So I just think it's awesome too that they were the opening act for the Globetrotters. That's pretty sweet. The next one comes from Jamie Bartholomew. She wants to send a shout out to the fourth grade team. This is their second year as a fourth grade teacher, and yet is like I've been a member of the team forever. The fourth grade team of teachers are welcoming and accepting, but more than that, they're the most devoted and hardworking people I've ever met. They're natural problem solvers, incredibly creative, and strive to reach each and every student in their classrooms. Each teacher on the team is so unique and dynamic. When one is down in the career or personal life, there are 9 support systems standing with arms open to help with anything that is needed. Sickness has taken almost all of us out for an extended period of time this school year, and without a beat, they step in to make copies, create plans, cover classes, check in with substitutes, amongst many other daily duties. They hear it often, but not enough, how absolutely amazing they truly are. This shout out is for the real superheroes and my amazing colleagues, the fourth grade teachers. They deserve the recognition and need it. So the next one comes from Allie Stevens and Karen Shetler. They wanted to send a shout out to the Marlboro teachers and all the students at Marlboro. Back in October, they created love links, and they mailed those off, and they joined in 553 other schools from all 50 states and 6 continents. Together, they created an impressive 18-mile long recycled paper chain with an estimated 360,000 love links, each decorated with an uplifting message. Although it did not set an official Guinness World Record, they're proud to claim that their own kindness world record. We have done something that's never been done before. What a glorious accomplishment. And also, Allie Stevens wanted to follow up and just mention that in addition to that, the staff and faculty at Marlboro deserve a shout out for collecting almost $1,000 to help a colleague who will soon go through a major life change, a good one, and made her proud to work there. Next one is from Jody Sell, and she wanted to offer a shout out to the UPMS directors and students for the recent production of Shrek Jr. the musical. In terms of overcoming challenges, actors learn projection and choreography at more than socially distant realms. Current 8th graders may have been part of the Peter Pan production when we were barely able to get it in March of 2020. In other words, 2/3 of the cast and crew had never been in a production like this, from set movements to light boards, sound, choreography, costuming, acting, and singing. It grew into an entirely student-run production with 2 sellout crowds Friday and Saturday. Congratulations to all the directors, but especially to Pamela McGovern, making her last production before her forthcoming retirement. And next we have one from Amber Cover. She wanted to give a shout out to 7th grade math teacher, Ms. Stone, and 8th grade math teacher, Ms. Gunther. Ms. Stone called me last week to inform me of how well my 12-year-old daughter is doing in math, and that she, Ms. Stone, feels like Alexis would benefit greatly from advancing in math. Since we are midway through the school year, it's not possible to move Alexis into advanced math, so she and Ms. Gunther obtained funds from the ESSER III COVID relief program to tutor Alexis and a few other students after school a few days a week, which would enable Alexis to move directly to algebra in 8th grade. Not only am I sincerely moved by the recognition of the kids' specific needs and being mindful of the fact that these kids have been in and out of the classroom for over 2 years now, but recognizing that there are some students who are not reaching their potential with the current curriculum. They took an opportunity to think outside the box, create a plan to help students like Alexis thrive more in school, and worked with the school administration to obtain the funding necessary to make this plan successful. This was the best news we have gotten in quite some time, and I really hope these wonderful teachers know the positive impact this will have for years to come for their students. And I'm down to the last one. So this came from Kim Bast. And she wanted to first send a shout out to Ruth Gunther and Principal Chris Siegfried. They worked together to treat Ruth's math, algebra, and algebra 1 and algebra 2 students, along with Lauren Keeblers and Pam Fainals, to an ETA program, Engineers Teaching Algebra. Their speaker was articulate, challenging, funny, and smart. He used a real-life example to engage students in a challenge and made sense of why we need math, algebra in everyday life. To quote Ms. Gunther, he really impacted their thinking. The speaker was quick to say that the program was not just for future engineers. Rather, the point is to make real-world connections for algebra, and surely he did this. And then finally, she wanted to send a shout out to the middle school second step program that was highlighted this week as our grant partner, Devereaux Center for Effective Schools, brought in visitors from their own group, as well as visitors from the Office of Mental Health at Montgomery County and from All Points North Foundation. Mrs. Siegfried and Sarah Rothamel, curriculum supervisor, worked to plan the visit. The visiting group sat in on a lesson in Mrs. Hillary Miller's 6th grade ELA classroom and watched students share in a mature manner about effects of the pandemic and the helpfulness of SEL skills as they navigate the continuing changes in school and society. Mrs. Siegfried shared a presentation, and Ms. Kate Harmon, middle school SAP counselor, spoke about the impact of second step SEL at the middle school. Then a panel of teachers gave of their time to share their experiences and take questions from the group. These rock star teachers were Jody Sell, Dave Pierce, Michelle Stone, Hillary Miller, Mia Rowan, and Mia Rowan. Hearing from all the UP team regarding the second step at middle school made me proud to be UPSD. The dedication to our students and their wellness is beyond impressive, and thanks to all. And I would not be remiss if not mentioning that the excellent work coordinated by Mrs. Rothamel has helped with very successful implementation of second step in grades K through 7. Many gratitude to Sarah. And thus concludes the shout outs for the school board meeting. But keep them coming. I love them.
I agree. Keep sending them to Mr. Prego. It's JP Prego, right? He has the P too. JP Prego at upsd.org. Send them lots and lots of them. Real quick, I want to just point out there are quite a few board meetings coming up in the next, not board meetings, committee meetings coming up. So anyone in the audience who's interested in any of these topics, curriculum and instruction, pupil services, special education, finance policy, they all have meetings coming up in about the next 10, 11 days before our next workshop. So please feel free to join us. We always welcome the public to come. They are definitely a little less formal and you have more time to really speak. So just want to probably at the end of every meeting, I'm going to throw that out because we're still not seeing very many people at the committee meetings. And that's where we really have time to sit and talk to you about issues. So it would be great if we'd see more people there as well. All right. On that note, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.